Okay, so you know how when you cook a meal for a lot of people, you're not supposed to apologize to them about the quality of the food before you serve it to them. You like let them try it, and if they love it, then great. So I set out to prepare a very ambitious shiur, and I don't know whether my time management is going to be good for this one, or whether it's going to be coherent, or whether we're going to have lots of more questions than we have answers for. But at the very least, we're going to plunge into this area and then we'll see what happens. Okay. So the title of the shiur is The 10th of Teves, a live prophecy about an ongoing catastrophe. And I don't know if you already did this in an earlier shiur, but it always pays to review this every Tainus. The Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Tainos Hey, Perek Hey, says there are days on which all of Israel fasts because of the catastrophes that occurred on them, in order to, here's the purpose of the fast days, to awaken the hearts of the people and to open the paths of teshuvah. So it's supposed to move us, and it's supposed to, that moving us is supposed to lead us to teshuvah. This will be a remembrance of our corrupt actions and the corrupt actions of our fathers that were like our actions today, which ultimately reached the point that these corrupt actions caused these catastrophes for them and for us. Through the remembrance of these things, we will return to do good. As it is stated, they will confess their sins and the sins of their fathers. So this is an idea I'm sure you've heard before, but we obviously hold that nothing happens to Klal Yisrael that's a catastrophe, which is not brought about by our own chataim, our own sins. So these major events that we're fasting on in these national fasts were brought about by the transgressions of our forefathers, or our fathers, not our forefathers, our fathers, and we still persist in these behaviors today. So the purpose of the fast days is to get us to be moved by by reflection on these events, and then for that to lead us to do teshuvah. And as we know, I know Mrs. H. Fader, I think, gave a shiur on Asarah Teves today. Is that okay? Good. Yeah. So feel free to chime in with anything that she has to make this shiur better than it is. Okay. So the main event is on the 10th of Teves, the king of Babel, the evil Nebuchadnezzar, besieged Yerushalayim and brought it into calamity and distress. And if I'm correct, I think I just saw her source sheets. Did she focus on the psukim in like Malachim and Yirmiyahu that like had to do with the tragedy, with the siege, or is that? Okay, no answers.
Yeah, she spoke about it.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. Okay, so I was kind of banking on that because hopefully you have a better idea of what the tragedy is, and I don't have to like use time to go through that. So ask me questions if you have questions about the event, but we're going to focus on something else. Okay, so today's objectives are, we're going to learn about the nevuah that the event came from. Okay, so this is actually the nevuah that predicted this actual day's event. 2, we're going to try to understand the avonos, the iniquities, the sins, the transgressions, the imperfections that led to this catastrophe that are in the nevuah. And then 3 is we're going to try to translate them into like actionable teshuvah ideas for today. Okay. So the Navi, I learned this for the first time a couple years ago, and I didn't even learn it. I just saw it, is in Yechezkel, which I know virtually nothing about Yechezkel. Okay. And this is part of the problem about why this is such hard shiur to prepare. So all you need to know about Yechezkel is that he was a Navi who prophesied at the same time as Yirmiyahu, at the end of the events of Churban Bayis Rishon. But Yechezkel was exiled earlier. So while Yirmiyahu Hanavi was in Yerushalayim, Yechezkel was in Bavel already with the Jews who had already been exiled. Okay, so it says, because of the massive amount of text that we're going to have to go through today, I'm just going to read it in English, okay? But the Hebrew's up on the thing. The word of Hashem came to me in the 9th year, in the 10th month, on the 10th of the month. Okay, now this is the 9th year of Tzidkiyahu's reign. Tzidkiyahu was the very last king of in Malchus Yehuda, and the Beis HaMikdash was Yerushalayim and the Mikdash were destroyed in the 11th year of his reign. So this is 2 years before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And this is on the 10th of the month, on the 10th month, which is Asarah the Teves. Okay, so here's the nevuah. Son of man, that was Hashem's, I guess, like nickname for Yechezkel, that he calls him that, all throughout the book. Son of man, write for yourself the name of this day, this very day. The king of Bavel has reached Yerushalayim on this very day. Okay, so he's telling Yechezkel, write down 10th of Teves, the king of Bavel has reached Yerushalayim. Okay, now, why doesn't Yechezkel already know this? Obvious question. Why doesn't he already know this?
Because he's in Bavel.
Because he's in Bavel. Okay, good. And just keep that in mind when we're doing this. Okay. And by the way, I mentioned yesterday before class that the phrase "etzem hayom hazeh," according to some poskim, then first of all, that's why we fast even though it's Erev Shabbos. Usually we don't fast on Erev Shabbos. And the Amudim says that if Asarah Teves fell out on Shabbos, which it can't do according to our calendars, but according to the olden days it could have, then we would fast even on Shabbos. So it's this day is very significant. Okay, so Radak explains, okay, son of man, write for yourself the name of this day, this very day. The prophecy came to him on the 10th of Teves that on that day the king of Babel besieged Yerushalayim. He told him to write the name of that day and to show it to the Jews in the Babylonian exile that on that day the king of Babel laid siege. Okay, so he's writing this down and then he's going to show it to the people in Babel. Okay, now why? And when they hear afterwards from the mouths of the reporters that it was so, on that very day that the prophet wrote, they will know that he is a true prophet in their midst, and that his words that he tells them in the name of Hashem are true, and they will no longer listen to these false prophets. Okay, so in other words, on the 10th of Teves, Yechezkel writes this down. He shows it to everyone in Bavel and says, hey guys, on this day, Nebuchadnezzar reached Yerushalayim and started besieging it. Then weeks, months later, I don't know how long it took during this wartime, people will come from Yerushalayim and report that Nebuchadnezzar attacked the city, and the people in Bavel will ask, what day? And he'll say, and the report will say, on the 10th of Teves, and then they'll know that Yechezkel was a real Navi. Okay. So my first question is, what kind of nevuah was this? Okay, now if you think about it, there are two things that make, or because it depends on how you count it, several things that make this nevuah weird, okay? Usually a nevuah is given to someone who is already established as a Navi, and it's to warn people about a future catastrophe, Asarah, that will befall them, and urge them to do teshuvah so that the disaster doesn't happen. Okay, what's weird about this one? This nevuah is given to an unestablished Navi. Okay, people did not believe he was a Navi, about a present Asarah. That's what I meant in the title of this year, a live catastrophe going on at the same time that's befalling another group of people, telling them that it's too late to do teshuvah to avert the Asarah. I just don't know what to make of this. Okay, it's like you want to say to Yechezkel, like, if Yirmiyahu has been talking in Yerushalayim to you for all these years, saying do teshuvah, do teshuvah, do teshuvah, or Hashem's going to destroy everything, and then finally the destruction happens, then you're like, okay, I understand why Hashem gave you these nevuahs. You were trying to like save us. But Yechezkel's like, hey guys, guess what's happening right now? Looks at his watch, guess what's happening right now? Yerushalayim is being destroyed. And the people in Babel are like, so what? Like, what are we supposed to do about it? So it's just a weird nevuah. Okay, that's my general question here. Maybe it could be formulated better. Okay, but now let's go on in the nevuah. Okay, it gets weirder. So this is still in Perek Chaf Daled. Okay, tell a parable. So this is Hashem talking to Yechezkel. Tell a parable to the rebellious house. Say to them, thus said the Lord Hashem Elohim, set the pot, set it, and also pour water into it. Gather its cuts into it, all the good cuts, meaning cuts of meat, thigh and shoulder. Fill it with the choicest bones. Take the choicest of the flock, and also arrange the bones at its bottom. Then boil it well so that even its bones become cooked with it. Okay, so he's going to go and explain the mushal in a little while. But when you first read it, you're like, okay, this is kind of a weird mushal. Okay, it's telling me to make a stew. All right. What's weirder is this is not Yechezkel's mashal. Okay, whose mashal is it? It's the people of, it's the Jews' mashal who were denying the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, how do we know this? Because 13 chapters earlier in Yechezkel, we have another nevuah. So what we're going to do is we're going to put chapter 24 on pause. We're going to go to chapter 11, read through that, and then come back to 24, because 24 is a reference to 11. So chapter 11, it says, then Hashem came to me and said, son of man, these are the men who connive iniquity and who give evil counsel in the city. Those who say the end is not near. Okay, you know those guys in the movies with the big signs that say the end is near? These guys had big signs that said the end is not near. Okay, build houses. The city is the pot and we are the meat. Therefore, okay, so that's what these people said. The city is the pot of Yerushalayim and we are the meat. And then Hashem says, therefore prophesy against them, prophesy, O son of man. Okay, now, we obviously have to understand what were these people saying, okay? And what do they mean when they said that the city is the pot and we are the meat? So Radak explains, who say the end is not near, build houses. The decree that the prophet prophesied about us is not coming soon. Therefore, there's no need to pay attention to his words. We will build houses, for Jerusalem is the pot and we are the meat. And just as the meat is not removed from the pot until it is finished cooking, so too we will not leave Jerusalem and not be exiled from it until our time comes to die a natural death, and we will die in it. Okay, so that's what they mean. The city is the pot and we are the meat. You don't take the meat out of the pot till it's done cooking. We're not going to leave Yerushalayim until we reach our natural, end point. And don't worry about what the Navi is saying. Okay, so just think about it. Now, remember, they were getting nevuahs about this from many neviim, starting with Yeshayahu all the way through until the contemporary times of Yirmiyahu and Sfania, okay, and then Yechezkel also. So, subtle question, did these people believe the nevuah?
Yes.
Yes, but yes,
it wouldn't happen yet.
But it wouldn't happen yet. Okay. And specifically, it won't happen to us yet. So we can build our houses and enjoy, our time here. And like the next generation, maybe we'll have to deal with it. Okay. So they're not outright denying the nevuah, but they're denying it in reference to them. Okay. Okay. So going on in Yechezkel, more in chapter 11 still. Okay. So this is the nevuah he was said to speak to them. Then the Spirit of Hashem fell upon me and he said to me, say, thus said Hashem. So this is what he's delivering to these people. This is what you said, O house of Israel, and I know what thoughts enter your mind. You have multiplied your slain in the city. Okay, chalalechem is sometimes translated as corpses. Art Scroll translated as slain, and I kind of want to keep it vague. Okay, you have multiplied your slain in the city and filled its street with the slain. Okay, so let's go on. So Radak explains. Okay. It is true what you said in the parable you made. In other words, when you guys said the city is the pot and we are the meat. Okay, it's true, but not according to what you said about yourselves and not as you thought in your thoughts. For I surely know what you think when you say this parable, namely that you will not be exiled from Jerusalem. But the real meaning of the parable will be according to what he says. Your slain corpses, which you have multiplied, meaning the people who you guys killed, they are the meat. And it, Yerushalayim, is the pot. For you have shed innocent blood and placed corpses in it like meat in the pot. But for yourself, nah, this parable will not be as you thought. Okay, so they're saying we are the meat, we're going to remain in the city forever. And Hashem is saying, no, the people, all the innocent people you killed, they are going to be in the city and they're going to be the meat. Okay, the mashal goes on. If it's confusing, that's proper. Okay, it's going to get more confusing. I want to lay out all the confusion on the table. Therefore, thus said Hashem Elohim, your slain that you have placed within it, they are the meat, and the city is the pot. But I will withdraw you from it. Okay, so I'm going to take you guys who were the meat, I'm going to take you out of the pot. You have feared the sword, and the sword I shall bring against you, the word of Hashem Elohim. I will take you out from within it, from within the pot, and deliver you into the hands of foreigners, and I will execute judgments upon you. Okay, so at this point, it sounds like they were saying, we are the meat, and we'll sit in the pot until we're good and ready to come out. And Hashem saying, no, I'm going to take you out of the pot and bring the sword against you. Okay, but then he starts mixing metaphors. You will fall by the sword. I will execute judgment against you at the border of Israel. The city will not be a pot for you, but you will be like meat within it. Okay, but I thought he just said that like they were taken out of it. Okay, I will execute judgment against you at the border of Israel. So they're in the meat, they're in the pot, they're not in the pot. They are the meat, but really the corpses that they're slaying are the meat. Very confusing. Okay. Then you will know that I am Hashem, whose decrees you did not follow and whose laws you did not carry out. For you acted according to the laws of the nations who are around you. Okay. And this is the end of this prophecy here. Now, if I asked you so far, he says here at the end that you did not follow his decrees and didn't carry out his laws. Which particular sin does it sound like this is rebuking the people for? What sin did he bring up?
Avodah
So we do know that the first base of Mikdash was destroyed by Avodah Zarah, but it doesn't mention that here. It mentions another one.
People.
Sorry, say it again.
That they were killing people.
That they were killing people, right? Okay. So my second question I want to ask here is, what was this sin of spilling innocent blood? Okay. were they going around murdering people? Like, we know that the first base was destroyed for Avodah Zarah. Okay, that we understand. Gilui Arayos, you can imagine that, what that looks like. But then Shvichus Damim of murder, were they just going around like just killing people? And who was doing it? Like, was it the leaders? Was it everybody? Was it on purpose? Was it in war? Like, I just, we don't have a lot of data on this. But he's saying that that's the main sin. Okay. And that's why Yerushalayim is being destroyed. So that's my second question, is I want to understand that. Okay. Third question is, why was usually the Navi gives his own nevuah with his own visions he receives from Hashem. But here, what he's commanded to do is to take their parable. They're always going around saying, it is the pot, we are the meat. It is the pot, we are the meat. And the Navi is being instructed to take that parable and make it into nevuah to turn it against them. So I have not seen this before. Okay, I've only seen nevuah, and I'm not a Navi expert. Okay, but I've only seen nevuahs where Hashem gives them a specific image. This is the only time I've seen where it's taking imagery that comes from the people and then using that and then reinterpreting it and saying, no, you guys are right, but not how you think, and then turning against them. So I want to understand, kind of a rhetorical analysis question, but what's the point of him doing that, or what ideas do we get out of it? Okay, now we're going to go back to chapter 24. So this is what we read last time in 24, and we're going to read an elaboration of the pot mashal. Okay, so again, he said, set the pot, set it, also pour water into it, gather its cuts into it, all the good cuts, thigh and shoulder, fill it with the choicest bones, take the choicest of the flock, and also arrange the bones under it, then boil it well so that even its bones become cooked within it. Okay, now this does not sound like the meat is the people who they killed. Okay, because it's telling them to take the meat and put it into the pot. So thankfully, Radak explains. Radak, by the way, I would give Radak a hug if I could, okay, because I totally relied on Radak for this year. I don't know how I would have understood this without the Radak. I actually earlier in the summer I had T-shirts made. I didn't actually make the T-shirts. I designed them that said "I stand Radak." I want to actually make the T-shirts in real life. I would totally wear them. Okay, set the pot. So Radak says this is what a person does with a pot. First, he sets it, which is to put it on the stove. Then he adds water, then places the meat into it, then boils it on the fire until the meat is cooked. When I first read this, I was like, okay, he's just telling us how to make stew. Okay, but now he explains it. The setting of the pot, it's going to get gruesome, by the way. Okay. The setting of the pot is a metaphor for the king of Babel besieging Yerushalayim, since this was his first act. So again, first thing you do with a stew is you put the pot on the stove. Nebuchadnezzar's first act was besiege the city. And the adding of water to it is a metaphor for the fact that the heat will not seize it quickly. For the water will delay the quick cooking of the meat, because without water, the meat cooks quickly. But when there is water, then the meat cooks very slowly. So anyone who has done cooking of meat before knows that if you put the meat directly on, let's say, a cast iron pan, you have a steak on a cast iron pan, 6-7 minutes, it's done, But if you make a stew, or if you do it sous vide style, it will take many hours, okay? Because the water slows the cooking, okay? So what's that a mashal for? So too, the days of the siege will be prolonged from the 9th year of Tzidkiyahu until the 11th year, in which they will continue to slowly perish in Yerushalayim from famine, disease, and sword. Now, perhaps it's because I was not really cognizant of Jewish history for a very long time. But the first decade plus that I observed Asarah Teves, I didn't know the timeline. I didn't know that the siege happened in the 9th year of Tzidkiyahu's reign, and they were under siege for 2 years, slowly starving to death and dying of disease in the city. Okay. And now this makes a lot of sense when you read about, let's say, in Eicha or in the Tochacha, when it describes the horrible, scenes of starvation, of, the most horrible thing being mothers being forced to boil and eat their own children, that it was 2 years of starving to death. So that's the mashal of being cooked, slow cooked in the pot. Okay. That's really the tragedy. It wasn't like besiege and then a few months later, the destruction, 2 full years. Okay. Then he explains the elements. Okay. All the good cuts. This is a mashal for the officers of Yehuda. Take the choices of the flock. This is a mashal for the other officers and leaders. Boil it well so that even its bones become cooked in it. This fire will burn so hot and cause the pot to sieve that even the bones, which are hard, will cook through. This is a metaphor for the mighty heroes. I don't know if that's like soldiers or something like that, who are strong like bones, but will die and fall by the sword in the city. Okay, so each of these elements of the mashal represents different people. So the people of Yerushalayim are being cooked in the pot of Yerushalayim. Okay, slow cooked. Okay, now this part is very gruesome, okay? And also arrange the bones under it. Burn the bones under it, under the pot. In other words, instead of wood, place bones under the, sorry, that's supposed to say pot. Place the bones under the pot and ignite them with the fire. Okay. This is a metaphor that it is as if the bones of the corpses that they had slain in it, in their shedding of innocent blood, are what is fueling the fire and bringing the punishments. So in chapter 11, the meat in the pot was the corpses that they had killed. In 24, it's a different mashal. It's saying, you guys killed so many innocent lives. Their bones are fueling the fire that will burn you and cook you to death. Meaning, because of the avera of spilling innocent blood, that will bring the heat of the punishment to you, which will afflict you. And by the way, just to add something here, this is not relevant so much to this particular shiur, but there, people are familiar with the Yom HaShoah of Holocaust Remembrance Day being in, I think, in the month of Nisan, I think. But there originally was a movement to make Yom HaShoah Asarah Teves. And I think the main reason why is because in the month of Nisan, it's not appropriate to mourn. And even in Israel today, from at least according to Wikipedia, Asarah Teves is the day that we commemorate, that we say Kaddish for all the people who died in the Holocaust that don't have anyone to say Kaddish for them. And when you think about that and this pasuk, it is chilling that the pasuk is saying that the bones of people will be burned to punish the inhabitants of Yerushalayim. And as we know, that is very, very Holocaust imagery, So I personally think that Yom HaShoah should have been dedicated, it should have been attached to Asarah B'Teves for many reasons, but that's a different shiur. Okay, onward in the mashal. Now this is where Hashem decodes the mashal. Therefore, thus says Hashem Elohim, O woe, city of bloodshed. Okay, now when you think of Yerushalayim, you think of nicknames for it in Hebrew. You think Ir HaKodesh, Ir HaTzedek, Ir HaChachma. Hashem calls it Ir Hadamim, the city of blood. Okay, woe, O city of bloodshed, the pot in which there is filth, whose filth has not gone out of it. Empty it cut by cut. No lot has been cast over it. For her blood was within her. She placed it upon a smooth rock. She did not pour it upon the ground to cover it with dirt, so that it might stir up my wrath to take vengeance. I have placed her blood upon the smooth rock that it not be covered. So I paraphrase. I'm just going to paraphrase this bal peh. The Radak says basically these people were so open with their bloodshed that they didn't even try to hide it. So it's not like we all know that if you kill someone, you got to bury the body, right? But they were openly killing people. And he says it's like they were killing them on flat, smooth rock where they weren't even bothering to cover it up. And also it says, hold on just a second here. No lot has been cast over it. Oh, actually, I'm not going to bring that in right now. It's not relevant. Okay. Therefore, thus said Hashem Elohim, woe, O city of bloodshed, I too will enlarge the pyre. The pyre is the fire. Increase the wood, kindle the fire, consume the meat, and mix the spices, so that the bones become scorched, and then stand it empty upon its coals, so that its bottom becomes hot and scorched, and its contamination melted within it, its filth consumed. Okay, now this is another complex aspect of the pot mashal. Okay, so the people in Yerushalayim said, we are the meat and Yerushalayim is the pot. Will be cooked until we're taken out and ready. Hashem is now saying, no, you guys are the meat, and the fire will be fueled by the corpses that you slayed, and I will add wood, and I'm going to cook you and cook you and cook you until everything in the pot becomes scorched. Okay, now I don't know if you've ever seen this or had this experience when you're cooking, but if you burn something in a pot, it like cakes to the bottom of the pot and is like, it's inedible, right? So Hashem's saying, I'm going to keep cooking you until everything is scorched and melted into the bottom of the pot. Okay. And then he says, she has become weary with her deceptions. This is Yerushalayim. Thus her abundant filth cannot come out of it. Only by fire can her filth be purged. So if you've got a pot and it's got all this nasty, burned, disgusting meat caked into it, what's the only way to clean it? You're not going to scrub it out. You have to fire it and burn everything out. Okay, so he says, because you remain in your licentious contamination. Because I tried to cleanse you, but you would not be cleansed. You will not again be cleansed of your contamination until I place my wrath upon you. I, Hashem, have spoken. It is coming, and I shall carry it out. I will not hinder. I will not pity. I will not relent. They have judged you according to your ways and according to your deeds, the word of Hashem Elohim. So he's taking this pot mashal even further, saying that he's going to keep cooking them till they get disgusting, and then in order to clean them, he'll keep burning them until no trace remains. Okay, and the Mefarshim Radak, I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, but the Radak says that means that ultimately Yerushalayim will be totally scorched and emptied of all of its inhabitants, who will all be killed, killed or exiled. So the question here is, what is the meaning of the complex mashal of the pot? Okay, I could not for the life of me figure out whether it's one mashal with different facets or if it's multiple mashalim that just use the same imagery. Okay, very, very confusing. Okay, okay, because I'm worried about time management, I'm sorry. I love to have participation in this year and ask you what you think, but just to make sure that we actually get to the final part of this year, I'm going to go ahead and try to answer these questions, and then we'll if we have time left over, then I'll hear other thoughts and we'll have other discussions. So, trying to answer what kind of nevuah is this? Okay, so again, usually you give the nevuah to warn about a future event so that they could do teshuvah, and this time was not. It was about a present event. They weren't doing teshuvah. It wasn't even the same group of people, and it was to establish his prophecy. Okay. So how do we explain this? So my mind actually went to Mishlei. Why? Because I'm Rabbi Schneeweiss. But also because Mishlei talks about a certain type of relationship to tochacha, to rebuke. So this is in the first chapter of Mishlei, which I don't think we learned when I taught Mishlei. So it says, wisdom sings out in the streets. Now this is talking about Mishlei tochacha, but I think this applies to all tochacha, all rebuke. Wisdom sings out in the street. It gives forth its voice in the squares. It cries out at the head of noisy throngs. At the entrances of the gates in the city, it speaks its words. So here's what Chachma is saying. How long, O naive simpletons, will you love your naive simplicity? Scoffers covet mockery for themselves, and fools hate knowledge. Return to my rebuke. Behold, I will express my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called you and you refused, because I stretched forth my hand and no one listened, and you rejected my every counsel and desired not my rebuke, I too, remember this is Chachma talking, I will laugh at your misfortune and mock you when your dread arrives. When your fear comes as sudden darkness and misfortune comes like a storm, when affliction and oppression come upon you, then they will call me. They will call Chachma, but I will not answer. They will search for me, but they will not find me. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose fear of Hashem, they did not desire my counsel. They rejected all my rebuke. They will eat the fruit of their way and be sated with their own schemes. For the tranquility of the naive simpletons will kill them, and the contentment of fools will destroy them. But he who listens to me will dwell securely and be undisturbed by evil. So I think the answer is like this. Okay, why was this nevuah given about a contemporaneous event? So the answer is, so I'll read what I wrote here and then I'll explain. This tochacha is not only rebuking them for their sins, it's rebuking them for refusing to listen to tochacha. That's why it conveys the message, you're already too late. You should have listened. Now you know, and now you'll listen going forward. So you had Nevi'im warning them about the tragedy and the destruction to try to get them to avoid it, okay? Yechezkel is a different kind of Navi, at least in this nevuah. His nevuah is, it's too late and you should have listened. And that's why the same nevuah that's talking about the tragedy that the destruction of Yerushalayim, the beginning of the destruction of Yerushalayim, that could have been avoided if they listened to the nevuah, that's the nevuah that verifies him as a Navi. Okay, because now it's saying, okay, look, we are now in Galus. This destruction is happening no matter what. Now will you listen? And so it incorporates the refusal to listen into the tochacha itself by being too late. And here's the thing, you can't give this type of tochacha early, okay? You can give the tochacha about the sin. You can't tell someone you should have listened. The only time you can give that tochacha is after they refuse to listen and they're getting the consequences. So this is the earliest possible time to give that tochacha, after they refuse to listen. Okay, any questions on that? I hope that's clear.
Yeah. Were they already kicked out into Bavel? So didn't it already start happening?
So it did, and that's the amazing thing. It already started happening. There were already people in Bavel, and this is where I tried to do a bunch of research on Sefer Yechezkel before this. I have no idea how many people, which people, what those people were like. If I knew more about that, I would explain it. And this is the tough part about learning Navi in general, is you do need historical context. And I was only able to gather a certain amount of historical context before the shiur. So I don't know. But apparently, though, just to answer Ayala's question, apparently the people in Bavel still didn't believe him, and they still didn't believe Yirmiyahu. So they were in denial, and I'll tell you, when I was preparing this with the yeshiva guys, then one of the guys, Isaac Lichter, said that this is very much like COVID. You know, at the very beginning of the pandemic, people were already dying. People were already, already getting sick and overcrowding hospital beds, and people still didn't listen. So the Asarah had started happening, and they still were ignoring stuff. And today, that's happening as well. So I thought that was a good and sad real world mashal. Yeah. Any other questions on this point?
So did the people in Yerushalayim get this message also, or is just the people in Babel?
So they were getting. I don't know. They didn't get the specificity of this message, but they definitely got the message that Nebuchadnezzar was coming to invade. That they got from Yirmiyahu. That was Yirmiyahu's first and second prophecies. Yeah.
What?
And by the way, Yirmiyahu also used the boiling pot. That was how he. That's another pot analogy, but there the pot is Nebuchadnezzar spilling out into Yerushalayim from the north. So there's a lot of pots flying around here. Yeah. Sorry, Naomi. What was your question?
Yeah. So why are they getting the nevuah now? So could they still do teshuvah? You're saying that.
So here's the thing, and this is another thing I don't know. Okay, there's a lot I don't know here. From here on out, so okay, just background information. Yeshayahu was the first Navi who prophesied about the destruction of the base of Mikdash, not counting Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeshayahu said to Klal Yisrael at the time, "Your sin is like a stained garment, but if you remove it with fabric, cleaning agents, then you can remove the stain and it'll be as white as snow." Okay, that was in the beginning. By the time Yirmiyahu got there, Yirmiyahu said, "Your garment is like a stain that can never be removed." Okay, your sin is like a stain on a garment that can never be removed. So the question is, so why was Yirmiyahu prophesying? So the answer is, by the time we got to Yirmiyahu, it was too late to undo the destruction of Yerushalayim and the Mikdash. But if they did teshuvah, then the destruction would have been less extensive, and there would have been less death, and it would have been less pain. So one possibility here is that if the people listening to Yechezkel did teshuvah, they could avoid further punishment and catastrophe. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that, I don't know Sefer Yechezkel. I regretfully don't know Sefer Yechezkel, but it's possible that he gave them further tochacha about other things that were going to happen and that they could do full teshuvah for and prevent. And this was needed to establish him as a Navi. So I just don't know the answers. Okay, I'm going to move on just to make sure that we get through this. And again, I'll take questions at the end if we need to. Okay, so now the question is, what was the sin of shvichus dam naki, of spilling innocent blood? Now this drove me crazy. Okay, I could not find anyone talking about what this sin was in particular. Okay, so I found two sources. Yeshayahu at the very beginning, first paragraph of Yeshayahu, when he's talking about Klal Yisrael and rebuking them and saying that destruction is coming, he says, "And when you spread your hands in tefillah, I will hide my face from you." This is Hashem speaking. "For even when you increase tefillah, I will not listen." Okay, so the people at the time were giving korbanos and davening, and Hashem was not listening. So now Hashem is saying, "Why will I not listen to your tefillah? Your hands are filled with blood." Okay, wash yourselves, purify yourselves, remove the evil of your ways from before my eyes, cease doing evil, learn to do good, seek justice, vindicate the victim, render justice to the orphan, take up the grievance of the widow. Now, if you just saw the phrase, "your hands are filled with blood," you would think that he's talking to murderers, okay? If you learn Yeshayahu in the beginning, the Jews back then, it does not seem, unless I'm missing something, it does not seem like they were open murderers, certainly at the time of Yeshayahu, okay? But from this particular context of these three psukim, what does it sound like it means that their hands are filled with blood? Look at the things he's rebuking them for.
They didn't do justice.
They didn't do justice. Okay. So my interpretation of this, my understanding of this is that by failing to do justice for the people who need it, by failing to provide for the poor, which is a big theme in Yeshayahu, which we'll get back to at the end of this year, then if you don't feed the poor, you are in effect killing them. Okay, and that is shvichus damim. By the way, there's a difference between ritzicha and shvichus damim. Ritzicha is murder. Shvichus damim is bloodshed. Bloodshed is anything you do to contribute to someone dying. So examples given: if you throw someone into a pit and don't help them out and they starve to death, that's shvichus damim. That's murder. That's a bloodshed because it's indirect. So if you don't help the people who need help, if you ignore the poor, you don't help the widows and the orphans, that is akin to murder, okay? Not just metaphorically in the sense that a poor person is considered as though he's dead and it's like you're killing him. No, they could actually die, and suffering is also akin to death. So it's murder in many senses. So this is one candidate for maybe why the type of murder that was going on. The second candidate is if you could blame one person for the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and Yerushalayim and the first exile, who do you blame? Anyone know?
Maybe
Nebuchadnezzar?
No, because Nebuchadnezzar was only an instrument in the hands of Hashem, punishing them. Who tipped the scales and made Hashem say, "Okay, now I'm destroying Yerushalayim"? So it was Menashe. Okay, one of the most evil kings in his 58-year reign. I think it was 58 years, 62, 52. I always forget the amount. So he's the one who introduced all of the avodah zarah. Literally, he tried to check off all the boxes. Like it was like Pokemon for him, but instead of God catch them all, it was got to do all the avodah zarah. And one pasuk in Malachim Beis, V'gam dam naki asher shafach v'yimale es Yerushalayim dam naki v'lo ava Hashem l'sloach. Also, much innocent blood was spilled. This is in the list of Chataim from Menashe. And Yerushalayim was filled with innocent blood, and Hashem was unwilling to forgive. Okay. I looked at all the commentaries on Al Torah for this. No one explained what was going on. The closest I saw was and I don't know if it means that he was like actually openly murdering people or what. And by the way, it's not Menashe's fault entirely. He introduced these trends into Yerushalayim, and then they took on in the people. And over those 50 plus years, then people started doing these things also. So I don't know what bloodshed is referring to. The closest thing I saw is the Metzudas David, who says blood was spilled. In other words, since the evil king Menashe was makil, he was lenient with regards to bloodshed. So then the people also learned to shed blood, thereby filling Yerushalayim with blood, making them all murderers. That's the only specific commentary I found on this in Tanakh. For how he spilled blood. Maybe there's stuff in the Gemara or in the Midrashim. I didn't have a chance to look at that. But that's all I found in Tanakh itself. Okay. So possible answers here. It's possible that they shed innocent blood by neglecting to take care of the poor, the oppressed, and the defenseless. And it's also possible that they were lenient when it came to the preservation of human life. And then that led to like a disregard for human life and led to more bloodshed. Okay. I'm apologizing again for not taking questions right now. I want to go on in the remaining 8 minutes. Okay, so now why is he delivering this nevuah with this complex parable of the pot? So again, I don't know for sure here, but going back to Yeshayahu Hanavi, there's two things in Yeshayahu. His first nevuah he ever gave in chapter 6 was, he says, Hashem told him, "This people is fattening its heart, hardening its ears, and sealing its eyes, lest it see with its eyes, hear with its ears, and understand with its heart, so that it will do teshuvah and be healed." So in modern psychological defense mechanism terminology, we call that denial. Okay, that the people they're hearing the Navi, they know that bad stuff is going on, but they're turning their gaze, they're covering their ears. And why not? Why don't they want to do this? Because they knew that if they acknowledge their sins, then they would have to do teshuvah, and they don't want to do teshuvah. Okay, that's Yeshayahu snippet number 1. Yeshayahu snippet number 2 is actually from the Haftarah that we read every fast day, Perek Nun Hey Pasuk Ches. For your thoughts are not my thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says Hashem. So I think what happened with the pot is as follows. Okay. Oh, sorry. And then going back to this Radak that we read earlier is Hashem saying, "It is true what you said in this parable you made, but not according to what you said about yourselves, and not as you thought in your thoughts. For I surely know what you think when you say this parable, namely that you will not be exiled from Yerushalayim." So putting it all together, the Navi is rebuking the people for taking the word of Hashem and distorting it to suit their own desires in order to deny its implications and to avoid doing teshuvah. So they're saying, the city is the pot and we are the meat. We're going to die a natural death here. We don't have to worry about the nevuah coming true in our lifetime. We're safe. We're secure. We're good. Okay. And Hashem is trying to show them, no, you guys are in denial. And that same mashal that you're trying to say about yourself, that is the real nevuah, but you got it all wrong and you are at fault and you are going to be killed. So by using their own words against them and phrasing the nevuah in that way, he's highlighting how they are warping the nevuah to suit their own avoidance to do teshuvah. Therefore it's a very effective rhetorical advice. It's almost like, I mean, it's a different move than Nassan Hanavi made to David Melech, but the whole parable of the sheep, and David Melech gets all angry and Nassan says, the man is you. It's trying to point out this hypocrisy and this like denial that they were in, and rectify that. Again, I'll take questions at the end. I have a concluding message though. Okay, so as we usually do, we do takeaway messages. Here, I felt like I want to preface the takeaway messages from the most important thing to read on any fast day, which is Yeshayahu, Perek Nun Ches, the first 10 psukim, I think. We read this as the Haftarah on Yom Kippurim, okay? So I just want to read this straight through in English. Cry out with a powerful voice. Do not restrain yourself. Raise your voice like a shofar. Proclaim to my people their willful sins, to the house of Jacob their transgressions. They pretend to seek me every day and to desire to know my ways. This is Hashem talking. Like a nation that acts righteously and has not forsaken the justice of its God. They inquire of me about the laws of justice as if they desire the nearness of God, asking, why did we fast and you did not see? Why did we afflict our souls and you did not know? So the Klal Yisrael is asking, we're doing all the religious stuff. Why aren't you responding to us? So what's the answer? Behold, on your fast day, you seek out personal gain and you extort all your debts. Because you fast for grievance and strife, to strike with a wicked fist. You do not fast as befits this day, to make your voice heard above. Can such be the fast I choose, a day when a man merely afflicts himself? Can it be merely bowing one's head like a bulrush and spreading sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast and a day of favor to Hashem? Surely this is the fast I choose. So in other words, we have to do all this stuff, but it's not just afflicting yourself and like doing al chaitz and sackcloth. Surely this is the fast I choose: to break open the shackles of wickedness, to undo the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free, to annul all perversion of justice. Surely you should break your bread for the hungry and bring the moaning poor to your home. When you see a naked person, clothe him and do not hide yourself from your kin. Then your light will burst forth like the dawn and your healing will speedily sprout. Your righteous deed will precede you, and the glory of Hashem will gather you in. Then you will call out, and Hashem will respond. You will cry out, and he will say, here I am. If you remove from your midst perversion of justice, finger pointing, and evil speech, and offer your soul to the hungry, and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light will shine even in the darkness, and your deepest gloom will be like the noon. So the three takeaway messages here. Number one, the purpose of a fast of a tinus is not self-affliction. It's to do chesed, tzedakah, and mishpat. Okay, the self-affliction is means to that end. We can reflect on that in different ways. I mean, I always think that the best, certainly for this fast, the best way to do it is to realize. Actually, let me say my second point. It's related to the second point. Out of all the tinios, out of all the fast days, the 10th of Teves is the most relevant to feeding the hungry, caring for the sick, and protecting the oppressed. Why? Because we're commemorating the 2 years of starvation, disease, oppression brought about by those who did not sufficiently care for human life. And the way I think that we should think, when you feel a hunger pang today, or you feel weak, and you think, oh, I can't wait till the fast is over and then I can eat. Remember, there are people in the world who, when this fast is over, still will not eat. Because they're not doing it by choice. They're doing it because they don't have food, and what the institution of a tinus is doing is it's forcing you into a situation of empathy where you are experiencing hunger and realizing that there are other hungry people out there who don't have food. And that makes you reflect on all of your other needs. I mean, the fact that you realize if I don't get food, I'm going to die. There are people who, if they don't get their needs, they're going to die. And this should prompt you to do tzedakah. And this is why, again, I know you're all in different financial situations. You should give tzedakah on a fast day. That's really what it's for. If you don't do that, if you don't do tzedakah, or if you can't give money, do tzedakah. Do it with your time. Do it with other things that you can do. Whether it's like making something for someone or like doing chesed with your body and your time. That's what a tinus is about. And if you only fast and you don't do that, so then Hashem is going to reject your tefillos and reject your fast. I mean, I'm not saying that. That's what the Navi himself is saying. And this is why I don't know if you guys remember in Yocheved last year, Asarah Teves fell out around my birthday. And I decided to use the birthday Facebook thing to raise money for feeding the hungry of Far Rockaway. And we raised over $1,000 for the poor families in Far Rockaway. This year, I guess I'll okay, whatever. This year, in memory of Yocheved Gourarie, my student who lost her life this week, I started a new campaign to donate to Amudim, to the not the seminary, but to the organization to help people with mental illness, which was the cause and the passion of Yocheved's death. And I started this campaign. As of last time I checked, we have already raised, let me see if I can update it. I don't know the exact number right now. We've already raised, last I checked, we've raised $1,800. Okay. And so if any of you want to donate, then I guess contact me and I'll give you the links and stuff like that. And just the, but it doesn't have to be through that, just any involvement in tzedakah. That's how you do a fast day. And the last thing also is relevant, which is if we ignore the poor and the oppressed, like in the time of Yeshayahu, or if we're lenient about guarding human life, like in the time of Menashe, so then we are partaking of the same chait that caused the tzara, and we're guilty of innocent bloodshed. And again, by neglecting the poor, neglecting the people who are struggling with mental illness in our communities, by not being careful about COVID, like that's what has led to all this innocent bloodshed. And like we have to realize it's not just vicious murderers who are guilty of bloodshed. It is people who are not taking care to preserve human life in many other ways. And we can all partake of that, and we can all work to try to stop it. And so this is really the point of the fast day, is to do justice and chesed and tzedakah. So that's the official end of the shiur. If you got to go, then you got to go. But I'll take questions as usual until the end.
Thank you. Have a good Shabbos.
Okay, have a good Shabbos.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
Shabbos. Your meaningful fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, I guess that's no questions then.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Matt,
very
I'll
much.
take,
All right.
Matt, can you send me the link? for
Yes.
Amudim?
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah. So here's the problem. Okay,
Okay.
is the particular campaign. Actually, let me just stop the recording here. Stopping recording.